2 years ago, in April 2024, I picked up J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings for the very first time. Well, technically, my anniversary goes back to March of that year when I first read The Hobbit. Either way, it is hard to believe that it has been already 2 years, and simultaneously that it has been only 2 years. It's so strange to think that before 2 years ago I knew it by name only and not in the deep and intimate way that I do now. When I first decided to explore this universe, I knew it would be something that I would enjoy, but I wasn't prepared for how life-changing it was going to be. And since this is going to be a channel about great stories and my love for them, I thought it would be fitting to tell one of my own stories about how I came to find Lord of the Rings and why I love it so much. The Lord of the Rings, being made extra popular by Peter Jackson's film trilogy, is essentially a household name. Like most people, I've always known of it. However, for a long time, I knew very little about it. Growing up, I was banned from watching a number of things, essentially anything that included or even alluded to witchcraft and magic, etc. In a fundamentalist religious household, this was seen as satanic and evil. Harry Potter was an obvious one. Star Wars a little less so, but still in the same category due to the notion of the Force. Even Narnia, simply for the title The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Everyone knows this story is quite obvious Christian allegory, and it was even played in our church, but we were barred from watching it. The Lord of the Rings was also lumped into this category. As we know, The Lord of the Rings doesn't really include a lot of magic per se, at least not as overtly as something like Harry Potter. But because Gandalf, as a wizard, has kind of always been a poster boy of sorts for Lord of the Rings, this earned it a place in the bad things category that we weren't allowed to watch growing up. Ironically enough, all of these big movie and book series have become my favourite things as an adult and serve as my inspiration to start making these videos. As for Lord of the Rings, I'd always heard about it growing up. I think I knew a few of the characters' names, but I had very little idea about the story and how large the world actually was. As I got older and hence had more freedom to choose what I wanted to read and watch, there was plenty of opportunity for me to check out Lord of the Rings, but for some reason I never did. To this day, I still don't know why. It's not that I didn't want to. I do recall there always being a vague interest, and funnily enough, this is the same thing for all of the previous stories I just mentioned as well. I don't know why I didn't look into them sooner when I had always wanted to, but for whatever reason it just didn't occur to me to start exploring until one day it did. I do have a strong belief, however, that everything finds us when it is supposed to, not a moment too soon or too late. So I think I just wasn't meant to discover Lord of the Rings until I did, and the timing of that discovery was definitely perfect and meant to be. So it was actually through my boyfriend that I got the inspiration to look into Lord of the Rings for the first time. We met online, and as friends at the time, we started talking about anything and everything. Now, I've always had a lot of interests, and during our time of getting to know each other, a lot of our conversations were filled with the things that I like. And one day I said, you know, we always talk about my interests, but I want to know more about yours. What's your favorite thing? And his answer was The Lord of the Rings. To which I replied, oh, I know of that. I've always wanted to check it out. Now, this conversation actually took place a couple of years before I would actually pick up the books. And again, I don't know why it took that long. I had no resistance to it, but for some still not fully known reason to me, I didn't pick it up straight away. However, that conversation did plant a seed in a way, or perhaps more rightly, it watered a seed that was already there. I had always had an interest in this thing, but knowing that it was the favourite thing of someone that I had come to care about a lot was kind of like this spark that fed the flame. It reawakened the desire in me to know about this thing and made the natural curiosity that I always had all the more stronger, and would eventually lead me to picking up the books for the first time. Now, I love movies. I love movies a lot, probably more than your average person. However, I am a book lover first. I've been reading since I was very little, and although sometimes I do watch a movie before reading the book, it is more typical for me to read the book first, and that is what I determined to do with Lord of the Rings. I will add though, as a quick side note, that I did happen to watch the animated Lord of the Rings movie from the late 70s, 80s, before reading the books. I got that for Christmas the previous year, and I figured it was a safe way to introduce myself to the world without spoiling too much. It was strange. I think we can all kind of agree when it comes to that movie, but I did like it. It was strange but good. And it made me even more excited to get into the books and later the Peter Jackson trilogy. I will also note that at this time I was looking on Wikipedia and all of these Lord of the Rings websites, not looking for any spoilers, but just trying to familiarize myself with a world that I was so quickly coming to realize was a lot more vast than I was prepared for. So I was looking up names of characters and trying to match them to pictures and stuff. It's really funny to look back on now with the amount of lore knowledge that I have, and to think that it was once a very new and big world to me. But I truly love the memory of that time. I'll never forget how quickly I became engulfed and just wanted to know more and more. The excitement of discovering something new is a really special feeling and something that I will never forget. So, it was April 2024, and that is autumn here in Australia, and I think that made the memory even nicer for me because that is my favourite season, and looking back, there couldn't have been a better time for me to start this Lord of the Rings journey. I borrowed the books from the library one at a time. I remember going in to pick up the Fellowship of the Ring, and my first thought when I picked it up was, oh, I thought it would be bigger. Which is really funny because, as we know, The Lord of the Rings is not a small trilogy of books by any means. But when I say bigger, I mean that I was under the impression from what I'd seen other people saying about the books that they were like gigantic or something. Now, I suppose they might be for some people, but for an avid reader like me, I kind of saw it as an average book, or maybe a bit bigger than an average book. I am probably one of the few people that has had that thought, which is pretty funny. Now, I happened to be so lucky that the versions of the books available at my library were the illustrated hardcover editions. Of course, those are really expensive, so they're not the copies I ended up buying, but I still feel really lucky that my first read-through got to be from those editions. They were my first impressions of the story, and they are beautiful. I can still picture myself mostly in my room, all cozied up with my blankets and candles and my fancy illustrated edition of Lord of the Rings. Occasionally I would venture outside to read, and I found that to be a really nice experience in of itself. The sunny autumn days surrounded by all the pretty leaves and just the general autumn vibe, ambience, it felt like the perfect setting to be reading this story. I remember one day I went to visit my mum in her town, and there's a beautiful little park there that turns absolutely magical in the autumn, and I brought the Fellowship with me that day, and I went to the park on my own and just read. It was a very simple thing, but to me it felt magical. It felt almost spiritual, but that's just me. Those little things do tend to end up being my favourite days and my favourite memories. I still feel warm when I think about that day and all the other days during that time when I was reading the 3 books. I became so instantly immersed in this amazing, wonderful world. I was awestruck by it. I found the books to be quite easy to read, even though It was my first time reading this style of writing and with world building and storytelling to such a high level. I think that's probably just a mixture of me being an avid reader, the fact that I enjoy reading so much in general, but it is also a testament to how good the story is and how much it gripped me. And I mean, I was already in. From the time I read The Hobbit, I knew that this was a world that I wanted to be in and I never wanted to leave. And reading Lord of the Rings only sucked me deeper in. During my time of reading, I would be thinking about it non-stop, and I just couldn't wait to be home where I could pick up the book again and just be in this world that I was falling so much in love with. Everything about it, the world, the story, the characters, it was truly epic, the most epic fantasy to ever exist. However, I quickly realized that it was more than even what it appeared on the surface. It wasn't only an epic fantasy with amazing storytelling and characters, it went deeper than that. It wasn't merely just a work of fiction. There was something so real about it, something so true. Now, I know Lord of the Rings has some casual fans, but I think especially compared to many other fandoms, that's kind of minimal compared to the people who seem to have a stronger love, something more spiritual. I've watched enough videos from other fans to know that I'm not the only one who feels this way, and that almost all of us have a deeper connection to this story, to this world. There is something about it that rings so true to life and resonates with us within our hearts, our minds, and our souls. I'm a big fan of things that are perennial, and that's where a lot of my focus tends to go to. In my opinion, Lord of the Rings is very perennial. It's not really a separate story on its own. It reaches into so many things, so many perennial truths about life, about us as people, and it intertwines itself with our own lives and our own stories. It speaks to us in ways that very few other things have or can. It definitely spoke to me from the very beginning, and it continues to. But the way it spoke to me at that time when I was first reading, it definitely reinforces my belief that what we need will find us exactly when we need it. It took me about 2 and a little bit months to read through The Hobbit and all 3 of the Lord of the Rings books, which I suppose is already quite fast, but that was me trying to pace myself. Again, I'm a pretty avid and fast reader in general, but because of the amount of enjoyment I was getting from these books, it made it go even faster. I was purposely trying to drag it out as long as I could because I wanted to savor being in this new world as long as possible. I'll never forget how exciting that time of discovery was, but I'll also remember it for other reasons too. And I guess this is where I want to talk more about why I love Lord of the Rings so much and how it reached me and what it did for me personally during that short time of reading and ever since to this day. I find it interesting to hear about what things each individual takes from Lord of the Rings, what they learn from it, the different ways that it inspired them, etc. For me, there were and are of course a myriad of things that I get from Lord of the Rings, but the initial thing for me was the themes of morality. I'm a big believer in good and evil and the never-ending battle between these two forces, and that's obviously something that, even on a surface level, drew me to Lord of the Rings in the first place. But on a deeper level, I love to talk and think about human nature and the good and bad that is in all of us, and how often things come down to our choices, and we, even as good people, can make choices in the favor of evil or be manipulated by it somehow. I love seeing how this is perfectly portrayed in so many incredible ways and nuanced ways through the Lord of the Rings and its characters. Reading about these characters really made me think a lot about this at the time, and Just a lot of reflection on the topic of morality and what is right and wrong, particularly in my own life and my own situation and set of circumstances at the time. I was having a lot of inner battles regarding to the choices that were there for me to make and the temptations I was facing. I'd never had such a strong battle like that before, and for the first time I was questioning if I was even a good person or not. And looking back on that, I can see I probably judged myself way too hard, but it was still good for me to have something like Lord of the Rings that made me think on these things, and it really inspired me. It made me want to be the best version of myself. And it got to a point, especially after I had seen the movies as well and started watching a lot of videos on here, where I was thinking about these characters all the time, and if I didn't think I was living up to the examples that many of them had given, I felt like I was letting them down. These characters in this story that I had come to love and admire so much, and that would really upset me, and I'd want to fix that and do better. Which is incredible for fictional characters in a fictional story to inspire you in that way, but it's always been that way for me. Fiction and stories are so powerful, and they do inspire, and they do change your life, and they can really make us who we are, and they can help us make our choices. They can guide and encourage. And I think Lord of the Rings really helped lift me up and took me to a place where I could think about higher things, and the things I really wanted to think about, the things I ought to be thinking about. And it just took my mind to a better place and made me think about what truly matters in life and what matters to me and what it really means to live, and just constantly reflecting on what the right thing was in any given situation that I was facing. And that's just incredible. But that's what I got out of reading Lord of the Rings and later watching the movies as well. It is an escape, and I know Tolkien always meant it to be that, but it's also more than that. We can use it to escape from the real world when it gets too much or too heavy, and we can be uplifted by this written world. But it doesn't end there. We come out of that then feeling more inspired and more encouraged to bring what we learn from that world into our world, into our own real lives. And that's the beauty of it. I don't know if Tolkien ever imagined that his story could reach that far or be that powerful. Being a spiritual person myself, I believe in God, I believe in divinity and that ultimate power, and I believe that Providence truly worked through Tolkien in a way that none of us can fully comprehend, but we got to reap the benefits of that, and I am so grateful for it. To this day, Lord of the Rings still has that same effect on me, even now that I'm deeper into that world than ever and my knowledge of it has grown. It still gives me the same feelings as the very first. I have read quite a few more of Tolkien's Middle-earth stories since then, and it has become such a comfort and a joy. It's a part of me now, such a life-changing experience, and it is truly light to me in the darkest places where all other lights have gone out. I am forever so grateful to be in a time where I get to know this story and have all this access to Tolkien's writings. I think Lord of the Rings is a prime or the prime example of just how powerful stories are and how important they are. When I talk about my love of stories, Lord of the Rings will always be the number one example that I use. Thank you so much for listening to my little story. I really hope this reaches all the right people, like-minded people who not only love Tolkien and Middle-earth, but just love stories. I think it would be really fun to have discussions and conversations with other fans about these things. I truly take so much enjoyment from talking about all these things, about all the great stories that we love and why we love them and what they mean to us in our lives and everything. But yeah, thank you again if you stumbled across this video and stuck around, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.